Liar. Everywhere. On netrootsradio.com. David Waldman. Kagro. In the morning. Now, here's David Waldman.
Hey, good morning, everybody. How you doing? It is Tuesday, June 16th. I'm having difficulty reading the screen here today. June 16th. I'm just going to trust it. June 16th, 2026. That part is not on the screen. That I just know. Until I don't know it anymore. And you know what? Maybe it's not even true. As a matter of fact, it's the year 1385. Everybody says it. Many people are saying it. I don't know what I'm bowled over every morning by the fact that we have to deal with this. It is rather incredible that Donald Trump continues to maintain that he is president of the United States and that we're at war, not at war, having an excursion, totally destroying the enemy, totally not destroying the enemy. We've been very nice to their army. The strait is open, the strait is closed. Iran is minutes away from a bomb. They're a million miles away from the bomb. The old deal was terrible. I'm doing far worse than the terrible deal, but this way it's better because it's me. And, I don't even know what to tell you. I think the last thing that I saw, I don't know how to rank any of it. I don't know if it's necessary to rank any of it as the worst thing he's done yet or whatever. But I don't know. I saw, so this morning, here we are. How you doing, everybody? Aaron Rupar, you've already ruined my day. You've ruined my morning, all right? Everybody has ruined my morning. Just stop talking. Don't tell me no more stories about what's going on here. The clip that he shared some 40-something minutes ago, I don't know when it was from. I don't know where it was from. I'll blow it up and take a look at it. It's on C-SPAN. Oh, yeah, right. I forgot to mention. He went to France, which probably was never a good idea at all. But, of course, to have gone there after he almost died, exhausted himself at his gigantic birthday party and staying up late. He arrives looking like death warmed over, and I don't even know how warmed over he was, in France for a G7 conference to allegedly to present the terms of the Iran deal to the rest of the G7, except, of course, there is no Iran deal. That is emerging, although everybody kind of understood that had to be the case because he's been back and forth on this 100 times. And remember, he sent Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner to negotiate this thing, and it was so bad that Lindsey Graham said J.D. Vance did it. That's how terrible a measure is that? They were never going to get anywhere. And, of course, over the course of however many months we've been at this, I mean, I don't know what to tell you. What if Americans had memories? What would we do then, right? We are in a situation where Trump has said, Strait of Hormuz, it's open, it's closed. The whole war is for keeping the strait open, but the strait was open when we went to war. Maybe it's actually, the one thing he's kind of stuck to, at least up until 45 minutes ago, was that this was all about preventing Iran from developing a nuclear weapon and removing enriched nuclear materials from their hands. And this morning's clip, I haven't heard the actual clip, but I'm looking at Aaron's excerpting of it and quoting of it. It says, Trump is backing away from getting Iran's enriched material. And the quote is, you could make the case, why even bother? It's not very valuable stuff. You can't make jewelry out of it? Is that what you mean by not very valuable stuff? Wait, it was a war. People died. Their sacrifice wasn't very valuable because we're not even interested in this stuff. And, forget it, the strait isn't open. And never mind, we even get to the real cost of this thing, which was our depleted military. And all our stockpiles of bazillion-dollar weapons are gone for nothing. I guess he just thinks everybody's got the memory of a gnat. Because I do. he's saying to himself. So I thought I did. I don't remember. How much memory do I actually have? And I don't even know what to tell you. I want to hear this quote. I guess it's it's a little longer than I thought, and I think I'm going to have to do it from the laptop rather than spend the time transferring it to the big show computer. But we should all get a set. I'll lower the microphone a little bit further down. I don't know how loud this thing is going to be, but let's roll. This is only about 36 seconds of tape. It's on C-SPAN because there he is. He's over at the G7 summit, sitting in a chair, and somebody else has been pointing out how frequently we've seen him seated. He doesn't do a whole lot of standing events anymore, and very few where he actually will rise out of a chair the way he did when he walked off of the Welker interview on NBC a week and a half ago, and everybody was remarking at how ridiculously weak he looked. All right, let me see what's up on this. This is the Chiron reads, President Trump on Iran conflict ahead of ceasefire extension, which, by the way, is the proper terminology, I think, that people are adopting for what this so-called deal is. As Greg was pointing out, it's ridiculous to be even calling it a deal. If it's a peace, it's a treaty, and if it's a deal, it's something else. And, yeah, as it turns out, one, in the United States, no one is releasing the details of the deal. That's a little bit odd. And that, I think, is by design to help Trump extend the period of time during which he can pretend it's a win. And then when the details are finally revealed, I guess at some point it has to come out. If he's primed his troops for long enough to say, we're all on board saying this is a win, so just say it, even though it looks like every single reason I ever gave for the war has been stood on its head. Just cheer louder, clap louder, and we'll, make this thing work. So here, President Trump on Iran conflict ahead of ceasefire extension, because that's all the whole thing is the memorandum of understanding is we're going to have a 60-day ceasefire extension to negotiate the real deal, this is like the 15th time that has happened too. And, and plus, in addition, when we negotiated a real deal, it's going to be us saying you can do whatever you want with the strait as long as you don't say there's a toll. Take the money, just call it something else if you want. And we don't even really care about the nuclear anymore. All right, I better play this clip here, see what happens.
So the Atomic Energy just reported that it was one of the most devastating...
I got to stop it already. Already it's too stupid. The Atomic Energy just reported. Atomic Energy didn't say anything, sir. That's not what happened here. And you should stop thinking so. All right, you know what? I might actually. The sound quality is bad enough already that you can't even hear the guy's death rattle clearly, which that voice is coming back to. He's quite exhausted. All right, let me put this in this is the dumbest methodology that I've got here, but I have to put it in email and send it to myself on the other computer. There's a way that I really need to study to be able to do this because Macintosh and Apple platforms just love doing things this way. This should be done seamlessly and wirelessly without the use of email, but I don't remember it. All right. Let's see. We can open this thing up and open up Aaron Rupar's post and get the thing paused and rewound, and then the sound up, and here we go. This will make things a little easier to understand, I think.
So the Atomic Energy just reported that it was one of the most devastating bombings that they've ever seen. The whole mountain collapsed on top of it. And frankly, to go get it, we're going to go get it, but to go get it is a big deal. Because they say only China and us have the equipment where you can even get. The whole mountain is collapsed on top. We have cameras on it. You could make the case why are you even bothering, because it's not really valuable. It's it's probably $500,000 worth. It's not very valuable stuff. But I think psychologically we want to get it. So the Atomic Energy.
So there you go. All right. So I guess the claim here is that the nuclear facility that we destroyed, which is allegedly buried underneath a mountain, was bombed to near complete destruction. The facilities collapsed. The material that they would use to make a bomb is buried underneath all this material. And and buried in such a way that it's irrecoverable by anyone except China and the United States. We're the only ones who have the equipment to do it. Now, mind you, there was at some point, I recall, during this this so-called excursion, that he was floating the idea of like some kind of commando strike to go in and take the stuff out. And of course, the stuff is measured in tons, and it's radioactive, and it's also buried under a mountain, and only the United States and the Chinese allegedly have the equipment to get it out. So I'm sure that the commandos would have just gone in there with their little cranes in their backpacks and jumped out of an airplane and set up their lightweight invisible cranes made out of stealth aircraft stuff and extracted the stuff in short order, and it would have been really super easy. And now we're at the point where, you could make the case, why even bother? Why even bother taking nuclear materials out of the hands of the Iranians? I don't know. Why did you bother the first time? You could make, there's a case to be made. Well, we made it inaccessible to them, and there's no reason to go and remove it from their hands, except that, they will now undertake to recover it and keep it. But only we have the equipment. It's a shovel, sir. I mean, I think they could probably make it work, but I don't know. So all the reasons for the war are gone. They've just been reversed one at a time in ridiculous taco fashion. And you know what? If you can just say anything, if you're going to just say anything, let's us start doing that for one thing. And two, if you're going to say whatever you want, just say it. Just say what you want. He's not the president anymore. We've 29th amendmented him. Is there a 29th Amendment? No, but what's the difference? If there was one, it would say, I'm sorry, this guy's just ridiculous and stupid. I mean, I don't know. What else do you want to know about? The algae in the reflecting pool? And ordinarily, we wouldn't remove a president for that. But, I mean, come on. But just stealth planes are invisible. There has to be transparency on the wall. That means there have to be see-through parts so you don't get hit in the head when they throw drugs over the top. The Continental Army took over the airports during the Revolutionary War. You name it. What Kavfefe is a real word. Pick it. Keep going. It doesn't matter. The guy's out to lunch, and he's out to like 2 or 3 lunches during the same day, as a matter of fact. Oh, and he's 235 pounds. Look, he's done. He's fried. Whoever's propping him up for this game ought to be arrested for elder abuse. We've said that 100 times already. That's where we now stand. So now we're tacoing out of all of this stuff. I saw also this morning this, I'm sure, a very learned piece, and I'm reluctant to criticize the piece itself because, well, one, I haven't read it, and two, I don't, it looks like a scholarly approach to things. Who's this? Edward Luce is the columnist in Financial Times, FT, right? Financial Times, U.S. columnist / commentator, author of several books. I mean, I'm the author of 0, including New York Times bestselling biography of Zbigniew Brzezinski. So that's a guy who knew about international affairs. And he wrote a book about a guy who knows about international affairs. So, along the way, he learned a lot about international affairs. He might even be trained in the ways of international relations. And he might be 100% right about this. I just don't know. And this memory of a goldfish president, I don't think you can make this kind of determination. The pull quote from this thing, and I may have to rely on just that because, it's in the Financial Times. And as I recall, the Financial Times was pretty robust in their paywalling. They have gift links for people, but they expire over time. And I guess when the guy first put the thing out, they started the timer, and now you can't. I don't know. I'll see if I can dig one up. All right, here we go. So there's some more powerful technology out there every day for getting around paying people, and we have to because nobody's getting paid anymore because something Elon Musk robots. I'm not sure how this all was going to work out in the end. But the pull quote from Edward Luce, who pulled his own quote from this, to post it on Blue Sky, and we appreciate it. Rarely has a geopolitical roll of the dice gone so rapidly wrong. Netanyahu played on Trump's vanity to help convince him to start this war. That same vanity will now be deaf to any future bridges Netanyahu might try to sell. That's the gist of the column here. And for a normal person, that would be right. Edward Luce, to, no great discredit to him, as the same problem we all have. We keep trying to think of Trump as a normal president who will react to things normally, or even as a vain idiot occupying the office of president. Ordinarily, a self-centered, vain idiot acknowledging or understanding that he's been fooled by some other party will hold it against them and refuse to deal with that party going forward, with varying levels of attempts at retaliation. But it's not clear to me that he remembers this stuff long enough to understand and execute that strategy anymore. I'm sure it would have been his strategy in his younger days, not that he would have admitted defeat or anything, but I don't know, that he would certainly, if he could remember it, would be trying to take it out on him. So I'm a little unsure, though, about this conclusion. I don't know enough about this article and this conclusion to critique it, but I do feel like if you think this is true, that the same vanity will now be deaf to any future bridges Netanyahu might try to sell, wait 5 minutes. I mean, you just try it out. Try the wait 5 minutes test and see whether you still think it's true. He has the memory of a gnat. Some people say a goldfish, but I think that's maybe long. I was going to say fruit fly, but I'm not certain that the point comes across. Anyway, all of the reasons, as you know, for the war have now been 100% reversed, and he's just standing there saying, no, we achieved all of them. It's been fantastic. And those that we haven't achieved, if we haven't achieved any, which I just said we did, but if in fact we haven't, then I don't know, go away. Then we never needed them in the first place. We didn't need the territory. We didn't need to control the strait. It was open. It's closed again. It's open again. They are taking a toll. They're not taking a toll. It's okay with us if they do take a toll. 1.7 billion to them is an outrage, so we're going to do 300 billion, And now, who even cares? Why are we going to go get this nuclear material? That was only the central premise. So, I don't know that he's going to remember that Netanyahu double-crossed him. Or I don't know that he's even going to see it that way now, much less 5 minutes into the future. But I'm a little bit curious about it. Edward Luce, I have no reason to believe, he's out of his mind or anything. I just think we all have this blind spot every once in a while and accidentally analyze Trump as if he were, all there. And I mean, I don't think Edward Luce thinks that that's true. What's the title of this piece at the FT? This time, Trump and Netanyahu have really fallen out, it says. Rarely has geopolitical roll of the dice gone so rapidly wrong as the Israeli PMs. I mean, I think that's probably true, too. Or instead, maybe that's the only part of it that's true, and Trump remembering it and holding him accountable for it does not seem true. Put yourself in Donald Trump's shoes. It was his 80th birthday, and he was planning to cap White House festivities with his U.S.-Iran deal. Oh, yes, that too, being discussed in a lot of today's columns, that it was clearly the reason that he came forward announcing a deal that isn't a deal. Again, what is, a deal for a 60-day ceasefire to try to find a real deal, is that he was desperate to do this thing on his birthday and say that he made peace in his 400th war and they should totally give him the Nobel Peace Prize. By the way, I'm wondering whether he counts every time he claimed the Iran war was over as an additional war settled, because he's doing this again with the War Powers Act. Every time there's an outbreak in hostilities, he claims it's a new set of hostilities. And he's been filing war powers reports to Congress just on things that he says are new and different wars, not including everything that has come before in this one. But I've also seen reported that he's had, angry phone calls with Netanyahu. There's reason to believe that he's mad at Netanyahu. The only question is how long he'll remember that he is, or even on his good days when he's kind of sort of still present in his brain and people can see the light behind his eyes, if there is any. he is still capable of simply saying, I'm reversing course. I know very well that he screwed me over, but there's greater advantage to me doing this thing for him now than not doing it, so I'm going to do it. I won't hold it against. I won't operate as a normal human being because there's money to be stolen, so I'm just not going to do it, even though everybody expected me to be mad at him. I'm not certain that he wouldn't do that. But okay, put yourself in Donald Trump's shoes. They'll fall off your feet, but go ahead. It was his 80th birthday. And by the way, if you don't put yourself in Donald Trump's shoes, he may try to force you into those shoes anyway. He's going to send you a pair in his size, and if they're not right for you, you got to wear them anyway. So what was happening? It was his 80th birthday. He wanted to cap the festivities with a U.S.-Iran deal. The agreement nearly unraveled, however, when Israel's Benjamin Netanyahu ordered a Sunday evening strike on Beirut. Allegedly, that was a part of the deal. No more strikes in Lebanon. And how anybody thought Israel, who wasn't party to this negotiation, was just going to say, yeah, sure, we'll do our part in this. I have no idea. I mean, think what you want about Israel, but they weren't party to the deal. Somebody else told them, hey, me and him decided you should stop doing that. Now, if it's the UN and you're going to back it up with something, fine. But if it's idiot American president who doesn't know what day of the week it is, and Iran, like, why does anybody think, whether you love them or hate them, okay, they're not going to be listening to two idiots bickering on the side about what they should do. It's just not what countries do. Anyway, yes, the agreement nearly unraveled. Netanyahu ordered a strike on Beirut. A flurry of White House calls averted Iranian retaliation. Assurances were given via mediators, and the deal was saved, even though the deal isn't a deal. Trump's late Rome-flavored cage fight could go ahead, and it was going to go ahead anyway. But Trump was still in a foul mood. Why did Bibi have to... Ooh, how do you like that? He's some expletives. I got to get my horn ready for this one. Sure, why not? Why did Bibi have to attack? He told Axios. I was so pissed off. I let him know. He has no fucking judgment. I let him know that. Nice. By the way, tan suit, everybody. The answer to Trump's question is that his Iran deal is likely to be a political death sentence for Netanyahu. He thus has every incentive to reignite Gulf War III, and even if he didn't, he wasn't going to listen to two other idiots. Anyway, he has bet his own and Israel's future on getting Trump to bring about regime change in Iran, and that bet has exploded in his face. Wooing back Trump will be a challenge. I don't know. How about a gold bar? Going by the adage, fool me once, shame on you, fool me twice, shame on me, the U.S. president has grounds to feel burned by Israel's prime minister, as does the electorate in Israel, which will have a general election by the end of October. But, pause here for just a second. Footnote, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice. If I can remember the first time, shame on me, except I have no capacity for shame. Now what, right? Like, what do we make of that adage now? Is that adage worth trotting out? In 99.9% of cases among humanity, yes, that's why it's an old adage. But what if you have a gnat-brained narcissist? I don't know. Not really sure. Netanyahu sold Trump and his own public on the idea that after 47 years, Iran's theocrats were finally meeting their Waterloo. All Operation Epic Fury required was some lethal targeting, and the Iranian people would do the rest. Rarely has a geopolitical roll of the dice gone so rapidly wrong. Netanyahu played on Trump's vanity to help him convince him to start this war. That same vanity will now be deaf to any future bridges Netanyahu might try to sell. However, if Netanyahu convinces Trump that it's already his bridge somehow, and he could sell it to me, I don't know. A bridge may yet change hands. The Israeli leader thus faces an unpalatable choice. Either he submits to a deal that leaves Iran considerably stronger than it was before February 28th, and I guess he wasn't expecting that, or he breaks with the U.S. by trying to scupper the deal. There is little scope here to split the difference. Netanyahu has the 60-day U.S.-Iran negotiating period to figure it out. No, he can just do it whenever he wants. Don't worry about it. He just did it. He will have fewer allies in Washington than before. In the early days of Epic Fury, the U.S. Capitol went through a brief neoconservative revival. Here was a chance to exorcise, right, the damaging and Iran-boosting legacy of the 2003 Iraq War by getting rid of the Ayatollahs. Here also was an opportunity to convert Trump to their worldview. In crude political terms, the early decapitation strikes on Iran were a good moment for Marco Rubio, the hawkish U.S. Secretary of State, and a bad one for J.D. Vance, Trump's America First vice president. It would be hard to overstate the reversal of mood between these two camps since then. Most of Trump's base accepts whatever he does on trust. If he wants to bomb Iran into the Stone Age, so be it. Should he instead promise billions of unfrozen assets to Iran and even more in future investments, also so be it. I mean, I don't know how you... That's true, right? He's correct about that. I don't know how you apply any of the old adages to that, quite honestly. In Washington, however, those contrasting paths represent factions that increasingly loathe each other. All they ultimately share is reflexive loyalty to Trump. Can he keep both in one tent? And if so, where is this tent, and can we target it in some way? The interventionist camp, which includes many Republican senators such as Lindsey Graham, will need to tread carefully. So they're blaming it on J.D. Vance, of course. Assuming the talks do not hit an early landmine or worse, ocean mine, right? Don't forget that's what we're really worried about here. Assuming they don't hit an early landmine, their shrunken parameters will offer a painful, teachable moment for Trump. Oh, nothing's teachable. And those who urged him into this war. Trump initially claimed he was motivated to help Iran's protesters. Oh, I forgot about that one. That's true. Thousands of whom were killed in by Iranian security forces at the start of the year. I didn't forget that. I forgot that he cared. Now he praises Iran's modified regime. And believe me, there's more to this story. We'll get to it and then move on to another sector after this 2-minute break.
Hi, Kagro in the Morning listeners. This is Rebecca Romans, longtime listener and longtime supporter of the show. Do you love your non-corporatized, completely independent, commercial-free Kagro in the Morning show? Do you stand out among the crowd at the office water cooler when discussing current events because of all the up-to-the-minute news you've been brought by David Waldman? Then it's time to give back a little. David relies on contributions from listeners like you and me to keep this show on the air. Patreon.com is among the easiest ways to make secure recurring monthly donations to support the show. Patreon.com/KagroX will bring you straight to his donation page, where you can sign up for any convenient tier you like. A mere $5 a month. You'll never miss it. Works out to about 25 cents a show. That means that David is making 12.5 cents an hour, which, by coincidence, is exactly what the GOP wants to lower the federal minimum wage to. Once again, David is ahead of the curve. If Patreon.com doesn't sound like your kind of thing, there's always PayPal, or even the Square Cash app. Any way you choose to donate, please choose to donate. And thank you on behalf of David and the rest of us listeners. Thank you very much.
All right, welcome back now to the Kagro in the Morning Show here on Netroots Radio. We got through to the Financial Times. We might as well finish up with this. I mean, it's worth discussing where we stand in all of this, even if we have to critique it along the way. And I don't know any other way of reading through an article, quite honestly. So let's see. We last left off saying Trump initially claimed he was motivated to help Iran's protesters. Now, I do recall him saying that was a part of it, but I guess it was always just a superficial part of it. Now he praises Iran's modified regime, which is another taco all by itself. Having run through an extravagant list of war aims, Trump has settled on one: reopening the Strait of Hormuz. Difficult though it will be to swallow, loyalists will try to present the reopened waterway as a triumph, even though the strait was unimpeded before the war began. They will also brush off the unfreezing of up to $24 billion in Iran's assets as a feature of the natural order. Woe betide those who dare to liken it to the $1.7 billion in cash that Barack Obama sent to Iran as part of the settlement in the wake of his 2015 deal. That's not going to happen with Trump, it was him. In fact, I saw that his name was in, and I forgot he sometimes does, or frequently does, the third party thing. That's not going to happen with Trump. The president promised at the start of Epic Fury. $1.7 billion is not what happened. He was correct about that. Instead, it's $24 billion. Plus, there's apparently $300 billion in investment for infrastructure recovery on the table as well. Where did that come from? Why do we have money for that? What's going on here? And who pays reparations in a war anyway? The loser does, of course. And that's the other theme of the day, is the number of headlines of pieces being published in major national outlets that just simply say it outright, that Trump lost the war. One of them was brought to our attention yesterday, Tom Nichols, I think, right? That Greg brought to our attention. There are more. Now, to finish here, the America First camp will be primed to praise whatever deal Trump strikes, even if it is less good than Obama's, which Netanyahu also did his best to scupper. From their point of view, Trump's flirtation with Middle Eastern forever wars is over. He's back to the president they thought they knew. Netanyahu is often called Israel's Houdini. Even he, however, will find this vice hard to escape. We'll see. Should he try to jeopardize the Iran talks, Trump's reaction could be worse than mouthing off to a reporter. Or he could forget the whole effing thing and take an entirely new approach to everything the next day. And then another one the day after that. That's kind of what I'm getting at. I don't know. But I don't know what else you're going to write. How do you analyze a situation that is that volatile and where there's no logic and no through story to any of it? Except that Trump is insane and he's lumbering from crisis to crisis and he does whatever he thinks he can get away with or whatever he thinks will make people leave him alone. Shut up. I won the war already. Get out of my face. Okay, so as I said, you'll find an Instapaper here today, I guess I got to close and refresh just so I have all the things, but I'm pretty sure the ones I parked overnight are still there, and as I said that they're, why didn't that delete? Well, lots of other similar headlines. There's, I forget what the Nichols one was. It might still be. There it is. Trump celebrates while America capitulates was his actual headline. Then I think on social media he was saying Trump celebrates while America surrenders, I think was what was being used on social media. But capitulates, it means the same thing, but surrender is, a loaded term. But there's more. I did see the New York Times, and I guess that's still important to him, too. The New York Times editorial, which I don't know how good the editorial is and whether it's worth reading, but it's certainly worth noting that the New York Times has run an editorial, by the editorial board, not one writer in particular, under the headline, President Trump lost this war. That's something. Granted, it's marked as an opinion piece in red ink and everything. But, to get that title, to get that headline out of the New York Times is worth something. I don't know whether Trump is acknowledging it or not. Well, do you wonder what they might have to say? Have you not yet read it? The preliminary deal ending President Trump's 4-month war with Iran is welcome, but brings with it hard truths. Mr. Trump made a terrible mistake starting this war. What is that? That's from Arrested Development. Does he say huge or does he say terrible? I've made a huge mistake. I made a terrible mistake. Mr. Trump made a terrible mistake starting this war. He prosecuted it recklessly and in open defiance of the law. Two things that are pretty bad, actually. The United States is emerging weaker. That also sucks. Militarily, diplomatically, and economically, and will pay strategic costs for years to come, even if he dies, right? And we're all stuck with it. The details of the deal are unclear because they're not announced, but the announced framework suggests that Mr. Trump has won few of the terms he insisted that he would. Duh. It is a humiliating come down for him and the nation he leads. Not that it can't be this one because he's not leading this one. I don't know what nation he thinks he leads. Since the war began, he has said the United States would achieve, quote, total and complete victory, and that Iran must agree to unconditional surrender. This is the most expensive unconditional surrender I've ever seen in my life. Unconditional surrender from them, $324 billion in reparations to them. Total and complete victory. All right. He suggested that regime change would occur. That didn't happen. He said that Iran would be permitted, quote, no enrichment of uranium, and that the United States will, working with Iran, dig up and remove all of the deeply buried near bomb-grade nuclear material that it already holds. But, of course, you already heard him in his sound clip from this morning say, actually, who cares if we dig it up? It's not even valuable. We're not going to, maybe you could make the case, maybe forget it. Who cares? You know, so we're definitely going to get it. It's definitely buried. We're definitely going to unbury it. Maybe we're not going to unbury it. I don't know. It's hard to say. None of this appears to be true. It's just the beginning of the next paragraph. Iran's hardline government remains in place. The specifics of the nuclear agreement will apparently be negotiated over the next 2 months. And by the way, by idiots. Just want to remind everybody who's dealing with this. And not only, again, they've done a job so horrific that Lindsey Graham was forced to save face by pretending it was J.D. Vance that did it. Who else could have effed this up so badly? It had to have been the bearded couch effer J.D. Vance himself. But it was, in fact, the beardless couch effer Jared Kushner who did it. Okay. We left off in the middle of none of this appears to be true. The government remains in place. The nuclear agreement will be negotiated later, but the terms seem likely to resemble those of a 2015 deal that President Barack Obama negotiated and Mr. Trump canceled in 2018. He described the Obama agreement as the, quote, worst deal ever, or as we like to say it, worst deal ever, the comic books guy version of that, and said it put Iran on a route to a nuclear weapon. Or as Trump more frequently says, a route to the nuclear. He criticized it for failing to force Iran to stop supporting terrorist groups like Hamas and Hezbollah. We forgot all about that. And for loosening economic sanctions. And I think I did see somebody list 3 such groups, and they put the Houthis in there too. Like they now have the 3 H's. It's interesting. They support Hamas, Hezbollah, and the Houthis. It's very interesting, very cutesy to have an alliterative 3-name phrase to do with this. Anyway, yet his destructive war seems likely to leave him with a similar deal, although probably more costly, amazingly enough. His biggest achievement in the ceasefire framework is the expected reopening of the Strait of Hormuz to global shipping traffic, which will eventually reduce the prices of energy, and remember the logistics chain here, in about 2 years. You should expect that to happen. And you should also remember that doesn't mean they're actually going to bring the prices at the pump down necessarily. Although, you know, it's a pretty volatile thing, pump prices. So, I mean, I guess you could say, well, no pun intended, but the pump is primed for that kind of up and down movement of prices there. But should you expect them to give it all away when they instead could keep some of it as windfall profits? You should not expect that. All right. But, and by the way, with respect to this opening of the Strait of Hormuz, did I put this aside? I think I put it aside yesterday, and I might have kept it in Instapaper. But this, too, Aaron Rupar, was circulating yesterday, I think. Is it easily accessible? Probably not that easy anymore. I don't know. But it was side by side that I thought might have been Aaron Rupar, but maybe it was somebody else, of Trump releasing a statement yesterday morning, I think, saying, and now we have a deal in place. Maybe this was Sunday during his birthday. I hereby declare, essentially, the Strait of Hormuz open for business. Let the oil flow, I think he actually said in his post. And then about an hour later, he posted, we have a fantastic deal, something, blah, blah, blah. And anyway, the Strait of Hormuz is going to open on Friday when we sign the deal. Open for business on Monday, open for business on Friday. Yes, no, I don't know. It may not be open at all. We'll see what happens. I mean, This is him, and he made this deal allegedly, and now he's out there saying, could be Monday, could be Friday, what's the difference? Does anybody really care? All right, where were we with this? Right, biggest achievement of the ceasefire framework is the Strait of Hormuz, maybe opening, maybe not. That, of course, is merely a reversion to the pre-war status quo. Iran closed the strait in retaliation to damage the global economy and increase political pressure on the United States. I guess that worked. Oh, yeah, it says right next to the move worked, and Iran's leaders now understand that they hold a powerful economic weapon. But, I mean, I think they always knew that. He just never got a chance to use it before. Trump gave him the chance to do it. On balance, Iran emerges the strategic winner of the 4-month war. It did suffer substantial losses, including much of its Navy, Air Force, and military-industrial capacity and political leadership, including Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, the supreme leader, who was killed on the war's first day. With the war ending, however, Iran's leadership can begin rebuilding. And I guess we're apparently going to pay for that rebuilding, too, which is amazing because of how hard we won. We won so hard, we're going to pay. Oh, actually, I mean, I guess he could point. Trump will probably do this. If you look at what happened, there's the opening for that. If you look at what happened at the end of World War II, okay, one of our greatest victories. Who paid for reconstructing Europe and Japan? We did. And he'll just say, that's how you know we won. I guess so. Nah, there's something to it. And then, of course, I don't think we ever played the clip of Trump saying this, but I think we mentioned it. And I know I mentioned it earlier today. He would say both, we totally destroyed their Army, Navy, and their Air Force. And then at some point he said something like, we've actually been very nice to their Army. Very nice. Like, what? I'm not even sure what that's supposed to mean. But we either totally destroyed it or we were totally nice to it. Or maybe that was the nice thing we did. The nicest thing we can do for you is destroy you. The United States, for its part, looks weaker in the eyes of the world. The American military has shown itself unable to quash a much smaller opponent, even as it burned through many of its long-range precision missiles and interceptors. The outcome damages this country's ability to deter other potential adversaries. To begin to repair the damage, the United States would be wise to mend alliances in Europe, the Middle East, and Asia, I don't think that's possible now, that have been frayed by the war's military and economic effects. Or it's not possible with this president, that's clear, or any of his Republican successors. The Pentagon will also need to modernize and prepare for the wars of the future. Neither is likely to happen under President Trump. Before the American and Israeli attack began on February 28th, Iran's leadership had endured a miserable 2.5 years. The government was far weaker than it had been before the October 7th, 2023 attack on Israel by Hamas, which Iran has long funded and advised. In response to that attack, Israel significantly diminished Hamas and Hezbollah, another Iranian proxy. In Syria, a murderous Iran-backed dictator fell while Iran's leaders did little to save him. Israel and the United States exposed Iran's air defenses and missile program as paper tigers when they bombed Iranian nuclear sites last summer, setting back its program. All the while, Iran's currency continued to plummet and its economy was in ruins. Starting late last year, the Iranians took to the streets to protest, and the regime responded by killing thousands of them, if not tens of thousands. All these problems remain, and Iran is still weaker than it was 3 years ago. But the war has given it leverage it did not have when 2026 began. Its regime has demonstrated that it can survive waves of attacks from two of its biggest enemies. Its leaders have not had to abandon their nuclear ambitions, and they have learned that the rest of the world seems unwilling to use military force to reopen the Strait of Hormuz. If Iran chooses to close the strait at some point in the coming years or months, what will Mr. Trump do in response? By the way, I guess internationally speaking, if Iran were to close the Strait of Hormuz again later, the best geopolitical response would be for the rest of the world to address the issue and the United States to stay out of it. And I bet Iran would take the rest of the world much more seriously than the United States at this point. But, hopefully we won't have to deal with that. We lay out these facts with no pleasure. Another thing the New York Times does is ever done with any pleasure, of course. Iran has been and remains a force for ill. They have a license to ill, though. We do know that much. It represses its own people, especially political dissidents, women, LGBTQ people, but the Times does that as well, and religious minorities. It is a world leader in torture and executions and has financed terrorism in its region and far beyond. Iran's leaders have impoverished a country where per capita income was above the global average as recently as the 1970s. But gee whiz, what happened between the 1970s and now? The regime's distinct brutality should have been reason for the United States to think, carefully and plan cautiously for any war. The history of modern American wars, particularly in Iran's region, is full of hubris and incubated defeat. And I guess I would say, and some more incubated defeat still yet to come. Mr. Trump yet eschewed thoughtful planning at every step. Well, he can't do it. And of course, you shouldn't depend on him to do it anyway. There should be infrastructure for that, except he's filled that with idiots too. He accepted the rose-colored assessment of Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu of Israel, by the way, echoed by everybody he hired here in the United States as well, who predicted that the Iranian regime would quickly fall. Mr. Trump dismissed the views of his aides who told him that Netanyahu's forecast was farcical. Mr. Trump ignored the Constitution and refused to seek congressional approval for the war. He did not listen to European and Asian allies who opposed the war. He failed to plan for Iran's obvious ability to close the Strait of Hormuz, because they've done it before. He made threats about destroying Iranian civilization that succeeded only in diminishing America's moral standing. For his sins, he has now agreed to a peace framework that the entire world understands is a defeat for him. It is a setback for America, too, and that's not just a sad footnote. We're all going to have to live with it, and he's going to roll around in a pile of money during the diminishment and setback of American power worldwide. He doesn't care. Plus, he'll be dead. So what's the difference as far as he's concerned? All of the externalities fall on the rest of us. We're going to have to deal with this as time goes on. I told you that there were more headlines. There are. Does every single one of them have to be read? Well, not strictly speaking, but actually it's kind of fun in some ways. Bloomberg News, also, of course, based out of New York, that's supposedly his hometown, has something similar. Are we going to be able to see it or not? Trump's Iran truce has all the hallmarks of defeat. Yeah, well, I guess it would have those. Mark Champion is the writer of this piece. They got a name on this one. Bloomberg opinion columnist covering Europe, Russia, and the Middle East. That's a broad swath. Previously, Istanbul bureau chief for the Wall Street Journal, as it turns out. Is it something I'm going to be able to read in Instapaper? Sure. A deal to reopen the Strait of Hormuz is set for signature Friday. We're totally opening it right away on Sunday, Monday, but whatever. Oh, and they've changed the idea of doing a remote signing to doing it in person as well. As Donald Trump is already congratulating himself on being the first U.S. president to have made peace with Iran since the country's 1979 revolution. Where did I see? Maybe I put it aside. There's a longer statement from Trump saying, many presidents have tried before me, but I'm the only one capable of making peace by surrendering and paying them $300 billion. What a great move. Why didn't I think of that? Anyway, that's wrong. He is the first to have taken America to war with Iran and therefore the first to have needed a truce to stop one. The peace his predecessors sought and failed to achieve has yet to come. None of this would be cause for criticism if the decision to attack the Islamic Republic were to leave the U.S. in a substantially better negotiating position than it enjoyed before the start of hostilities. That's very realpolitik, right? It would be okay for you to have started a foolish and stupid war just so long as it came out better for us in the end than it was when it started. Well, it's kind of rough. We can't be sure of the terms of the so-called Memorandum of Understanding because Trump has no understanding of anything, but also because they haven't been published. But the fact that the Iranians are gloating while Israelis are horrified strongly suggests that that isn't the case. Those reactions and what official comments we have on the agreement's terms suggest that Trump's negotiators have, at least for now, solved only the new problems that he himself created. These include the need to eliminate Iran's stockpile of highly enriched uranium, which did not exist before he collapsed the 2015 nuclear deal, and, of course, to reopen Hormuz, which closed only as a result of the war he chose to wage, right? So even on the nuclear material front, the one thing he's still clinging to, well, he was clinging to until early this morning when he went on television and said, we don't even really want to do that. That's not even very interesting. The need to eliminate this stockpile only arose because of what he did in his first term, tearing up the Obama-led agreement. The Israelis are aghast because even though they are a party to the conflict, they have had no role in the negotiations, and there's no indication that Trump's truce will end any of the problems they went to war to resolve. Why should you have your problems resolved by this war? We didn't. Oh well. The nuclear issue is reserved for negotiation after the truce takes effect. Others aren't even mentioned. The eventual deal will have at least 4 requirements, judging by comments where all sides agree. That's all you can do with this. These are an end to all hostilities, including in Lebanon, reopening the Strait of Hormuz to shipping, a restart of nuclear negotiations, and the release of billions of dollars in frozen Iranian funds, though with conditions and a schedule that remains unclear. The conditions are, you have to punch us in the face while we give you the money, and the schedule is, I don't know, when do you want it? What day works for you? The June 11th statement from Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's office on the forthcoming deal amounted to a reminder of all the business that the MOU will leave unfinished. The Prime Minister expressed his appreciation for President Trump's commitment to the final agreement reached at the conclusion of the negotiations will include the removal of enriched nuclear material, except now he says it won't, the dismantling of enrichment infrastructure, I think that was bombed, but limitations on missile production, they haven't agreed to, and the cessation of Iran's support for its terrorist proxies in the region, and that's never going to happen. Iran's negotiators have also are also having to sell the deal at home, where hardliners object to any agreement with the U.S. They don't believe that Washington, which with Israel assassinated the nation's supreme leader while engaged in the last round of nuclear talks, can be trusted. See why? Plus, in their view, they're winning the war. As part of the sales campaign to counter this opposition, Iran's state-controlled Mehr, M-E-H-R, Mehr news agency has published comments from Mehdi Mohammadi, strategic advisor to the Iranian negotiating team, as well as leaked purported 14-point drafts of the MOU. Mohammed highlighted that the MOU's terms would mark the first time the U.S. has guaranteed it will control Israeli actions, something he considered highly significant, something I consider highly unlikely, but okay. He also said the agreement would commit Trump, the architect of America's maximum pressure sanctions policies, to lift primary economic sanctions on Iran, which they already did at least partially during the war itself anyway, which is amazing enough. And although the MOU does require Iran to enter talks on diluting its stock of highly enriched uranium, negotiations on any other part of the country's nuclear program are not guaranteed. That would require the assent of both parties. Without mutual agreement, there will be no negotiations, he said, according to Mehr. And I guess how else could there be, right? It's just basic contract law, right? If there's no meeting of the minds or no agreement between the two parties, what do you have? Nothing. Just one party's assertions. The other part of the draft published by Mehr, like the creation of a $300 billion reconstruction fund, are hard to credit, amounting to an Iranian wish list. And lots of people have warned that that's the case. But I just haven't seen any strong evidence that we're pushing back against that in any way. Also, it's so dumb, it could possibly be true because Donald Trump. Yet, nothing that U.S. officials have said, either on or off the record, suggests the core elements of the deal Mohammadi describes are wrong. Taken together, they would simply reflect the reality that this war was, for the U.S. at least, a strategic folly that has left the Iranian regime wounded but with more leverage than it had before. Trump criticized the Obama-era nuclear deal he went on to dismantle because it was impermanent, and failed to completely eliminate Iran's uranium enrichment program or address other Iranian threats such as its ballistic missile program and network of proxies. He also faulted the so-called Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action for, in exchange for Iran's concessions, returning some frozen funds and lifting sanctions. Trump said he could do better. Yet Friday's MOU looks set to fail on the same counts while making even more concessions for a much more limited potential nuclear deal, and all because Iran had discovered it can hold the world to ransom by closing Hormuz for the second time. That may not save a hated regime in Tehran once peace returns, but it will make for an inherently volatile situation in the Middle East. I don't doubt that the MOU will be signed because this war has no realistic prospect of success if continued, and the cost of the global economy of pursuing it, not to mention to Trump's personal political fortunes, can only grow. But this is a ceasefire extension and an agreement on Hormuz, not a peace deal that would reimagine U.S.-Iranian relations or bring stability to the region. It's a mark of the war's failure that all of the problems that predate it have been left to the future. It's, reasonably succinct. This whole thing has been a complete and utter disaster. All right. So, here's Aaron Rupar's post from yesterday, putting side by side the statements an hour apart from Trump. The first one being the deal, capital D, with the Islamic Republic of Iran is now complete. Congratulations to all. Do not congratulate. I hereby fully authorize the toll-free opening. Call now, 1-800. Strait of Hormuz. The toll-free opening of the Strait of Hormuz, and simultaneously herewith authorize the immediate removal of the United States naval blockade. Ships of the world, start your engines. Let the oil flow. President Donald J. Trump, which is now in all capitals. And then 1 hour later, and good timing here because it's 1 hour later since we started the show, this great deal will bring peace and security to the whole region. Many presidents have tried to make peace with Iran, and all have failed before me. The leaders of the region have, for the first time, found a president who can help them achieve real peace. With the opening of the Strait of with the opening of the Strait upon the signing of the deal on Friday, for purposes of mine removal, oil will flow on both ends again for the region. I'm sure it flows in both ends every day for Trump and the world. President Donald J. Trump. But just a reminder, 1 hour apart. I hereby declare this strait open right now. And then 1 hour later, by the way, we're signing a deal to open the strait on Friday. So, whatever. Anyway, start your engines and let them keep running in idle for 5 days. All right, welcome back, everybody, to the Kagro in the Morning Show here on Netroots Radio. Let's see what else is in the bag of tricks here. And I think it's probably about time to jump off the Iran subject, although I know that there are some other things that I meant to say about it, and we'll see whether, any other thoughts lead us there at some point. But yeah, I kind of want to switch direction. There is Epstein news, and I had this one yesterday, and I didn't get a chance to read it, and it's from, the leading light on this story, Julie K. Brown, down in Miami, in the Miami Herald specifically, but you can read that up here. Don't worry about it. Epstein, and I guess you had to know that this was the case, Epstein paid Palm Beach deputy to get special treatment in jail, ex-aide says. And I don't know whether the same people are still in office. This would have been a while ago, but I'm pretty sure that one of the honor guard folks at the crazy UFC thing on Sunday night, one of the cops that was joined by a Medal of Honor recipient to escort the fighters into the ring was a Palm Beach sheriff or deputy. I wonder if he was involved in the payola scam here. That would be fitting. Be just about right for the feel of the event yesterday. If you went from getting bribed to Jeffrey Epstein to making, I don't know, maybe do you think he paid or do you think they paid him to make the appearance at the UFC fights? All right, let's get to it. Julie Brown's latest from just yesterday. and I guess we'll have to jump around a little bit to get this on the record. It's illustrated by a photo of Jeffrey Epstein's, according to the caption here, Jeffrey Epstein's former assistant, Sarah Kellen, arriving to testify at a closed-door interview with the House Oversight Committee on Capitol Hill on May 21st of this year. Kellen testified that Epstein arranged to have cash and Disney tickets, that's all you have to do to bribe this guy, delivered to one of the Palm Beach County Sheriff's deputies who worked in the jail when Epstein was incarcerated, according to a transcript of her testimony. That's very interesting and, of course, quite fitting. Now the only question is, was it simply, minus the bribe part and the massive corruption and depravity it represents for going easy on a pedophile who's actually in jail. But in addition, I now ask the question, was the deputy taking his own kids to Disney for a family vacation, or was he also a sexual predator and going to Disney in order to rape children? I don't know. You don't know. We'll see whether Julie knows. Sarah Kellen, a longtime personal assistant to sex trafficker Jeffrey Epstein, well introduced there, has disclosed for the first time that Epstein's preferential treatment at the Palm Beach County Jail may have been the result of him paying off Palm Beach Sheriff's deputies. And it certainly makes some sense. That was the whole point of his amassing his fortune, was to be able to pay people off to leave him alone and allow him to operate with impunity. That shouldn't surprise anyone. Let's see, where were we? Kellen, during her interview with the House Oversight Committee last month, was questioned about perks. That's it, perks. Perks like walking out of prison. That's some perk. Perks that Epstein received while he was incarcerated at the Palm Beach County Stockade. That's very old-timey language for it. A facility where Epstein was jailed from 2008 to 2009. She said she visited Epstein several times at the jail, and one time when she was home, he was able to use Skype from a jail computer to contact her. We should have had him on the show. Had I only known. We weren't doing it then, of course. He used that computer to get her... Wow. I didn't realize what kind of assistant she was, although I guess I should have guessed. She was much younger at the time, of course. He's been dead a while, and this is 2008. She's not, an older woman at this point, but, in Jeffrey Epstein's case, I guess, by his judgment, yes. So why the Skype call? Well, yeah, you probably guessed already. He said that he used that computer to get her to undress for him on camera while he was in the jail, Kellen testified. And I don't know what the psychological situation in all of this is, but the guy's in jail. You could say, you know what? I'm not going to undress for you. What are you going to do? Break out of prison and get him? And then she realized, oh, right, the rest of this call is about getting him out of prison. So maybe I better undress. I don't know. That's just an insane aside in this whole thing. She was then asked by Florida Congressman Max Frost, a Democrat who represents the Orlando area, whether she knew of any other, quote, ways that Epstein was able to receive special treatment in the jail, besides phone sex on the office Skype machine while you're in prison. I know that he arranged to have cash and, Disneyland tickets taken to one of the offices in the jail, and I'm not sure what he received with that, Kellen replied, according to a transcript of her testimony. She identified that Palm Beach Sheriff's deputy as Michael Fox, not Michael J. Fox, he didn't do that, but Michael Fox. And now I'm just interested in, where could I find information on, I'll have to look that up separately. It's going to take me too long to do it at the same time, but who was in those honor guards at the White House. So Michael Fox is the guy you're looking for here. She was asked how she learned about Fox, and she explained that Epstein's paralegal, Story Cowles, that's her name, not Stormy like Daniels, but Story Cowles, Cowles, had complained to her that he had to drive... What? She asked how she learned about Fox. She explained Epstein's paralegal, Story Cowles. Oh, maybe that's he. Okay. Had complained to her that he, Story, I guess, had to drive a long distance to personally deliver the cash and tickets from Epstein. Okay, so he had to make the delivery. I thought when I said Story was like Story, that's the name. not Stormy, but Story. I guess I was thinking it was coded female, but I guess it isn't. Mr. Story Cowles, I guess. The paralegal was involved in that. Interesting. The Miami Herald was unsuccessful in reaching Fox because he was at the White House escorting. I don't know whether that's really him or not. The spokesman for the Palm Beach County Sheriff's Office said Fox retired from the agency in 2020. So I guess if that was him in uniform at the fights, then he shouldn't have been in uniform. The Epstein investigation did not reveal these allegations, and they were never investigated in connection with that case, said Palm Beach Sheriff's Office spokeswoman Teresa Barbera. Or maybe it's Barbera. It's not Barbara like the first name. Not one of those people with two first names. So Epstein investigation did not reveal these allegations, and they were never investigated. Okay, how did that not come up? Because, I mean, we all know the story of his getting preferential treatment while he was in jail, right? Like, nobody said, so what other preferential treatment, like, do you remember? Oh, cash and Disney ticket payoffs to the Palm Beach sheriff's deputies for him to, I don't know, do what? Oh, and also Skype sex calls. It never came up because they were just so far down the list, I guess. Everything else was so much more horrific that we forgot those two things. She further noted that an investigation by the Florida Department of Law Enforcement conducted in 2021 found no wrongdoing by members of the sheriff's office. Well, if you don't look, you're not going to find it. After an extensive investigation, FDLE determined that there was no, and that's capital letters, both N-O, no inappropriate or criminal activity on the part of any PBSO member with respect to their participation in Epstein's work release or the permit detail. We took the bribes for other stuff, so technically that's a true statement. Maybe, I don't know. She added there are no current plans to investigate any other allegations since FDLE's 2021 probe. The investigation is complete, she said. Next section, allowed to leave jail up to 12 hours a day. We've certainly heard about that one in the past. Not enough attention paid to that. Questions have long been raised about how Epstein was able to receive work release where he could leave the jail for up to 12 hours a day, 6 days a week, to visit his office as a known sex predator. By the way, that was the office he was visiting. He wasn't visiting his financial planner office. He was visiting his sex predator office. Palm Beach Sheriff Rick Bradshaw, who has been the county sheriff for more than 40 years, and may also have been at the fights, has said under the work release requirements at the time, Epstein was eligible for the program. In an interview with the Herald, former Deputy Sheriff Michael Gauger, or Gage, I don't know how he pronounces it, Gauger, who supervised the jail during Epstein's tenure, somebody you want to talk to, well, he said he'd been concerned the deputies could be subject to influence by Epstein, who had a history of using his power and money to get what he wanted. Right, sure, that's why he's in jail. When told about Kellen's allegation to Fox, Gauger responded, I was afraid that would happen. Epstein was so smooth. He was trying to hook me in, and that wasn't going to happen. He added, it wouldn't surprise me at all because of how manipulative he was. However, he said he wasn't aware whether Epstein was successful in his efforts. If that had come out, he would have been put on isolation and lost his privileges, Gauger said. Gauger or Gauger or Gauger, or God knows what his name is, said the decision to give work release was made on the advice of the sheriff's office attorneys, who said Epstein's lawyers would mount a successful lawsuit to obtain work release. And by the way, of course, it's not work release to break rocks anywhere or dig ditches on the side of the road. It's work release to do whatever work he wants to do for himself, which, as it happens, is raping children. But, it's neither here nor there, really. Our lawyers said, we are going to lose this. Our attorneys told Bradshaw, we aren't going to win this, Gauger said. That's the same thing, of course. And, by the way, you should be, if you haven't read it already, the New York Times report on the government lawyers advising people how the law stands and whether you're going to win or you're going to lose and what you should do as a result is rather shocking as well. And all part of the big presumption of regularity story looming on the federal level. But that's a totally separate story from this one. Emails contained in the Justice Department's Epstein files showed that Epstein used his sex therapist, Dr. Stephen Alexander, to reach out to Gauger, whoever, while he was still serving his sentence in 2009. So he did get approached, actually. Under a plea deal his lawyers arranged with federal prosecutors, Epstein pleaded guilty to 2 solicitation charges in state court and was sentenced to 18 months in the Palm Beach County Jail. By the way, yeah, that's bad news if your therapist is helping you arrange sex bribes with people, especially if it's your sex therapist. It's not you're not trying to counsel him into more illicit sex, doctor. You're supposed to be working with him to get out of that mindset. Anyway, in return, he was given federal immunity for his sex trafficking crimes. Oh, that's nice. In exchange for what? In return for pleading guilty. So thank you for pleading guilty to solicitation charges. Now we won't charge you with federal crimes, which is now the deal that Trump is trying to work out for himself with the IRS. Isn't that something? He ultimately served only 13 months. Most of the time was spent in his West Palm Beach office on work release. He was also assigned to a private wing of the county stockade, not the county's general jail. So even the 12 hours a day, 6 days a week that he spent there was spent in a private section of the jail, so there would be nobody else around him to bother him. It's not the lap of luxury, certainly, but, if you're going to jail, if you can get a whole wing to yourself, that's not bad. It's a little weird being isolated over there. Is that like solitary confinement? Not if you're allowed out 12 hours a day. It isn't. I don't know what you do with the rest of your time, but in terms of defining it as solitary confinement, it is solitary while you're in there, but it's not confinement. So if that part of the equation is out, then I don't think you have a problem. In return, he was given federal immunity for the sex trafficking crimes. He ultimately served, 13 months. We just read this. Then the private wing part. Gauger, I wish I could know and settle that name once and for all, said Epstein was given gain time or a reduced sentence for, quote, good behavior, and to his knowledge was not given any special treatment by deputies except for the private wing, etc. But apparently that was ordered for the deputies to do it. So the deputies on their own didn't do anything in terms of special treatment. They were only following orders. That's fantastic. And by the way, time off for good behavior. If you are going to keep raping children while you're in jail for raping children, do it on your own time and in your own place, not here. Because if you do it here, we can't give you credit for good behavior. You understand? Now, I don't want to see you smuggling any children in here. If you get the urge, go to your office. Epstein paid for overtime for some 90 sheriff's deputies during his work release. That's probably no problem, right? Totaling about $130,000, which is to him cheap, right? Epstein's business, the Florida Science Foundation, paid the money to PBSO to cover deputies assigned overtime to monitor him during his work release. The deputies were asked to wear suits and refer to Epstein as their client, PBSO records show. Right, if he's going to come into contact with anybody else, he can't have cops dressed as cops around, and you can't refer to them as deputies or wardens or anything. They are clients wearing suits. Because everybody knows a business suit is respectability itself. You put it on, you're a respectable figure. Raping children with it, I guess if you keep it on, that is okay too. But as long as you put it back on before anybody sees you in between raping children and going out into society, people will say, look at that guy. He's got a suit. He's not a child rapist. Gauger guy said it was because he was mindful that Epstein was slick. Because of that, he rotated the jail deputies frequently to prevent any one deputy from being influenced by Epstein, and/or it was a scheme to help spread the wealth. Remember, if you're only bribing 3 or 4 of these deputies and the other 6 get wind of it, they're going to be mad and they're not going to play ball. You could view it that way. Sheriff's official had lunch and dinner with Epstein, which normally you wouldn't want to do with someone who was in prison, because prison food, right? Gauger admitted that Epstein was able to persuade him. Remember, he had no control over me. I was wise to his manipulations. but he did persuade me to meet with him for lunch and come to his mansion for dinner after he was released from jail in 2009. Epstein was still on house arrest at the time. Kagro, who was second in command of the department, said he met with Epstein because Epstein claimed he had information about possible improprieties by some of the jail guards. So he goes and backstabs him after he's done with him, too. Nothing came of Epstein's tip, Kagro said, and he could not recall what else they talked about during the meals he shared. The newly released emails show the dinner was in September of 2009, so it was totally worthless, allegedly. The Herald was unsuccessful in reaching Cowles, who identified himself as Epstein's paralegal, who visited Epstein more than 100 times when he was in jail. Cowles was in a romantic relationship with Kellen at the time. That is interesting. And how romantic that relationship must have been. He visited Epstein 100 times. Did he know that when Epstein was Skyping with his girlfriend, he was asking her to strip for him on screen, and she was doing it? And was he into that? Just plain old cool with it? Kept in the dark about it? Or did he go 99 times saying, this time I'm going to punch him in the face, but never get up the nerve? I don't effing know. I don't know. And I can't even guess. Cowles was hired by Epstein's criminal defense lawyer Jack Goldberger within days of Epstein pleading guilty in West Palm Beach on June 30th, 2008. Court records show he worked solely with Epstein as a conduit for information between Epstein and his attorneys, but also a couple of Disney tickets. Just so you know. All right. I don't know. I guess it's a new development. It's a clearer picture of another muddy situation, I guess. We have more information about how depraved everybody in, I guess, the whole of West Palm Beach County at that point was. There you have it. I wonder if I could, let's see, can I find something quickly? UFC fight, White House Honor Guard Police. Is there anything that tells me anything about this? Trump used honor guards to offer, is it just complaints about the military aspect? I want the police thing. I don't know. I'm going to have to do some reading about that. And we'll see if we can report back to you on that at some point in the near future. All right. Time to move on to a couple of other things. I thought this might be of interest to Will Bunch, writing in the Philadelphia Inquirer just yesterday. Just a little commentary on the Elon Musk situation that I thought I'd share with you. It is, of course, relevant to everything we are talking about. And, of course, it was written by Will Bunch, so, well worth our time and effort, I guess. Elon Musk egged on a race riot, then became a trillionaire, like the next day. That's pretty amazing. What are we even doing? Will Bunch asks in, once again, the Philly Inquirer. Let's see. What do we have here text-wise? Where is it? I'm trying to read it from the Instapaper page, but I don't think it's actually working all that well. So we may try again with our paywall technology and see if we can't get to the rest of it. Will Bunch, of course, well worth your subscription money at the Philadelphia Inquirer. If you got it lying around, I can only suggest that you do that. Elon Musk egged on a race riot, then became a trillionaire. What are we even doing? Did you even notice? I think, everybody kind of saw the news about it. I haven't gone too far in depth with it, but Belfast, Northern Ireland, is what we're talking about here and what's going on there. Elon Musk's climb to obscene, undeserved wealth while wrecking a civil society everywhere, but Belfast in particular, is the essence of our broken century, Will writes. The images coming out of Belfast, the city in Northern Ireland, made famous by decades of ethnic violence that came to be known simply as the Troubles, were horrific enough. The sight of cars and homes ablaze and hordes of masked young men roaming the city streets brought back painful memories for old-timers. By the way, another function of Trump's frozen 1980s brain. He's not only bringing back and rooting for inflation and acid rain, but for the return of the Troubles to Northern Ireland. Like, we actually made progress there, but he wants to go back to the old times, I guess. I lost my teenage years to the Troubles, a shell-shocked 71-year-old Paul Sharkey told the New York Times after watching a flaming van crash near his home on the outskirts of Belfast. I thought moving out of here, I had got away from them, from the bombs and bullets, all the rest of it. I guess the outskirts of Belfast might have been quieter when he was a kid. Remarkably, no one seems to have been killed in a couple of nights of riots that targeted Belfast's black and brown immigrant communities after a Sudanese migrant was charged with a stabbing, captured on video, that left a white man in a coma. And the important part here is he's a white guy. But terror was felt across Northern Ireland's largest city as volunteers raced to rescue families from burning homes. Immigrant addresses were posted online, and workers were afraid to go to work after a nurse was attacked. And yet, there was something about this anti-immigrant pogrom in Belfast that was just as appalling as the pictures of burning streets and fleeing children. Their biggest cheerleader was not some street thug in a balaclava, but the richest person in the history of planet Earth, urging the rioters on from some posh hideaway on the other side of the Atlantic. Tuesday morning, as news of the stabbing attack spread across the United Kingdom, Elon Musk took to Twitter, you know what he calls it now, X, the influential social media site that was called Twitter until he bought it in 2022, or when he bought it, for $44 billion, by the way, pocket change, of course, and he didn't pay it, to amplify a post by UK far-right extremist leader Tommy Robinson. It called for white people, quote, to hit the streets that night and protest what Robinson called yet another invader attack on our people. I'm sure he had nothing to do with the white guy, but whatever. Only by protesting and setting everything on fire, repeatedly and loudly. Pop-up ads in the reader that I'm looking at. That's odd. Only by repeatedly and loudly protesting will there be any change, 2 exclamation points, wrote the U.S.-based, South African-born, electric car and spacecraft mogul, just hours before the sadly familiar loudness of repeated explosions rocked Belfast. Musk's tweet was hardly a one-off. In a flurry of X posts attacking immigration, he told his 240 million followers, many of them compulsory as it turns out, that British Prime Minister Keir Starmer, quote, hates white people, while sharing an image of the black suspect, which simply said that millions must go. When his diatribe started provoking a backlash, he wrote, murderous migrants beheading innocent people. Beheading? What are you talking about? In their hometown is what's making people angry. Not, quote, social media. Nobody beheaded. It was a stabbing. But, what do I know? Maybe it was. I stabbed him repeatedly in the neck and almost got his head off, but put him in a coma instead. The nonprofit tech watchdog Center for Countering Digital Hate found that Musk's posts about Belfast and racial politics in the UK were viewed an astonishing 64 million times. The center noted that the amplified posts from Robinson, banned from the pre-Musk Twitter for hate speech but restored in 2023, drew responses calling for lynching and other forms of violence. Musk has also been using X to promote a fringe far-right anti-immigrant party called Restore Britain, an offshoot of the Nigel Farage-led Reform UK. By the way, one of the young kids doing influencer work under the Restore Britain banner, known apparently, it's not his name. His name's not Bob or Robert, but he's known as Young Bob for whatever reason. I believe I saw a video circulating of him just the other day trying to pull a Charlie Kirk style immigrants are horrific, terrible people, change my mind story. Just sitting there with a booth and everything. Apparently somebody changed his mind by beating the crap out of him on the street. And bystanders eventually step in and stop the thing. And by the way, it should be noted that they too were noticeably blacker and browner than many of the other people in, say, Belfast, but this didn't happen in Belfast. But they did eventually step in to stop the beating. But you did get a chance to see him sit up in tears and crying. He is, after all, in the end, a very young kid. He's not, underage kid, but he's a young kid and obviously an idiot. I don't know how far out of my way I might have gone to stop the pummeling, quite honestly. It wasn't really even all that bad. I didn't see any blood drawn. So he could have stood for another couple of minutes of beating, in my opinion. But hey, you're not supposed to express the opinion that it's fun to beat people. Just saying that it would have made for a better video. I'm just speaking. It's so crazy it just might have worked. That's all. That's all I'm saying. Anyway, that has nothing to do with this story. He's beaten up quite a few days later. It's kind of bizarre that this then billionaire, not too busy to hate, found time for this billionaire not too busy to hate. Okay, I guess that's a description of. All right, let's see. Kind of bizarre that this then billionaire not too busy to hate found time for this in a week where he had one job, at least anyway, to make sure the long-awaited stock offering of one of his major business ventures, SpaceX, launched on Friday without blowing up like some of its rockets. Okay. Unfortunately for the star-crossed Musk, investors' shock and revulsion over the entrepreneur's vile posts caused... Okay. He pauses. If you follow the news, you know that the unfinished sentence above was a little bit of cynical misdirection. Wall Street, from the biggest investment banks to starstruck small-time day traders, could not wait to throw their cash at SpaceX and its founder. They acted as if Musk, the anti-immigrant hate monger, and Musk, the tech visionary, and that's undeserved, were two totally different human beings, even as they also ignored the fantastical malarkey of SpaceX's.
Sup, fam? It's your boy Darwin, a.k.a. Darwin_Darko, a.k.a. the most reasonable man in America, a.k.a. KITM's senior black correspondent. You might remember me from such recordings as Spacemen vs. Space Cadets and We Need to Talk About Joe Biden. Today, I want to bring you good news about that thing you've been struggling with. Do you suffer from giving too much of a damn? Do you turn on the series of tubes and find yourself outraged at the particular way some news organization strung some sentences together only to realize, nope, this is not some fictional hellscape? Well, guess what? You no longer have to accept the life of giving too much of a damn. You can do something about it, because even you, yes you, can be a show contributor. Now I know what you're thinking. Hey, Mr. Most Reasonable Man in America, I'm not some professional podcast talking guy. Don't worry about it. Do you have a smartphone or some other electronic recording device? Well, that's all you need. You too can have a segment where you can read us an important article and give us your take. Read one of your own original essays, or even just give us your commentary on something you'd like to share that's important to you. Fair warning though, side effects may include general punditry, having opinions and hot takes, getting stuff off your chest, and hearing your own voice. If your recording lasts longer than 5 to 7 minutes, please consult kagrox@gmail.com. That's KAGROX@gmail.com.
All right, welcome back, everyone, to the Kagro in the Morning Show here on Netroots Radio. My music cut me off there, and I didn't even attempt to finish the sentence. It was ridiculous to even have tried to start that one with so little time left. I was simply saying, and reading Will Bunch here, that investors acted as if Musk, the anti-immigrant hate monger, and Musk, the tech visionary, were two different human beings, even as they also ignored the fantastical malarkey of SpaceX's dream to build data centers in outer space. Okay. By the end of a tumultuous week, the tulip mania demand for SpaceX stock, with the market valuing the money-losing company at a gobsmacking $2.1 trillion, made the world's richest person wealthier in a way that defies comprehension. Everybody is trying their best to parse it and explain what it would really take to amass $1 trillion, and it's really remarkable. But yes, the man who wanted to burn everything down on Tuesday became the planet's first trillionaire on Friday. And ordinarily, those are not the guys who want to burn everything down. Everyone wants to burn them down and take their money. But yeah, it's interesting to be a trillionaire, burn everything down kind of a guy. What happens to all your money? Oh, I don't care. I just prefer to burn things down. Even as the globe, accepting that island of basketball joy in Gotham City, watches a decadent Donald Trump turn 80 by tarnishing the White House with a tacky ad-draped display of barbaric blood sport that would have embarrassed Caligula's Rome, Elon Musk is truly the ultimate story of our modern empire's decline and fall. The problem is which Elon Musk story to tell. Each narrative is more shocking than the next. The saga that I've started to recount here about a man whose wealth is now greater than the yearly gross domestic product of all but the 21 richest nations in the world who uses that power to urge poor white people to firebomb and assault their black and brown neighbors, isn't even the worst thing that Musk has done, not by a long shot. The prequel to Belfast came just over a year ago when Musk, after spending some $288 million, an all-time U.S. election record, yet the equivalent of a sofa cushion change for a future trillionaire. By the way, sofa change loses a lot of its value if it's J.D. Vance's sofa. Like, you know what? Just leave it in there. Anyway, so he spent some $288 million to put a dictatorship-minded Donald Trump back in the White House, and then, of course, was handed an all-access pass to our federal government for what was dubbed the Department of Government Efficiency, or DOGE, or as we say, Dodgy. Musk and his young dodgy dudes took a chainsaw, as Musk boasted by brandishing a real one, to any program that advanced world peace or the plight of its most underprivileged. In particular, the utter destruction of the U.S. Agency for International Development, USAID, which Musk bragged about tossing into a proverbial wood chipper, has been blamed by a number of experts for an unthinkable hundreds of thousands of deaths across Africa, Asia, and elsewhere from disease or hunger, with children as most of the victims. Fantastic. And yes, by the way, they keep confirming every day that the latest disaster in the news, the screwworm stuff, also, by the way, sabotaged and sacrificed by Dodgy. And now will be, I think I did see somebody point out that they spent about, it was some actually low amount of money by comparison on the continuation of the prevention programs, but they saved, $1.5 million by axing the program under Dodgy, and now they announce they'll be spending $1 billion to try to undo the damage of saving 1.5 million. So, pretty amazing. Anyway, Will Bunch continues, remember when we were outraged that our leaders said they could shoot one person in the middle of Fifth Avenue? How quaint. And yet, there's another Musk storyline on top of the obvious question of why are so many people betting their money on literally the world's greatest purveyor of hate speech and the alleged architect of a born in the USA genocide. That question is, why are we collectively throwing all this money at Musk at all? The 1990s Wharton School graduate started with some good ideas. Oh, he's a Wharton School graduate too? Musk? I did not realize that. Anyway, started with some good ideas. An early stake in PayPal that gave him the funds to launch SpaceX and take over early EV leader Tesla. But his revenue stream is increasingly from the crony capitalism of government contracts, not the free market, as Chinese EV makers have been cleaning Tesla's clock. And it's almost lazy, yet true, to describe SpaceX's business model as pie-in-the-sky science fiction. The openly racist tycoon isn't even a good businessman, and yet he has failed upwards to $1.1 trillion. I think there's one question about Musk that towers over all the others. What are we even doing here? It's easy to look at Musk as an amalgamation of the many, many things that are wrong with the world right now. He is a poster child for the policies that have enabled an Epstein class of billionaires with more dollars than we have the ability to count, even as thousands starve and his fellow Americans can't pay the rent. He has, I don't know if he would even acknowledge us as fellow Americans, or whether we should acknowledge him as one, but okay. He has so many scandals that some of them, his data center polluting a predominantly black neighborhood in Memphis, or the dodgy cuts that could have slowed the spread of Ebola or stopped the arrival of the screwworm striking Texas cattle, couldn't even fit into this longer than typical column. Musk and his destructive abuse of his massive X platform has given him the power to manipulate the struggling masses into attacking each other instead of the small circle of people hoarding the world's wealth, led by Musk himself. I mean, that makes strategic sense, at least. When buying Twitter wasn't enough for his obscene ambitions, he decided to buy the White House. When I wrote about Musk for the very first time 2 years ago, is that right? I reached for the obvious cliche and called him a Bond movie villain, but that was far too generous. He has devolved into one of the most problematic entrepreneurs, I shouldn't even use the word, in human history, Henry Ford behind the wheel of a Cybertruck. It's past time to look inside ourselves and ask one more question. Now that Musk has shown us who he really is, why do we continue to support him? Why do millions of investors pay so much for the magic beans of Tesla and now SpaceX to endorse the lead spreader of racist ideology, putting aside the fact that his stock bubble will burst any day now? Well, if you put that aside, then there's no reason. But, okay. Why do so many leading politicians across the United States and the UK, liberals as well as conservatives, and supposedly socially conscious corporations, among others, still use X to convey information when its owner uses it to promote views that really aren't any different from David Duke or the Ku Klux Klan? That's also a question for myself. In November of 2024, when Trump was reelected with Musk's support, I moved about 98% of my social media posting over to Blue Sky, but I didn't close my X account, which still had 80,000 followers, because I wanted to keep posting my columns there so a few more folks might read them. Today, he says, I will make one last post on X, a link to this column in the vain hope that the platform's proprietor might see it and that other folks will join me in quitting. Tonight, sometime before I sit down to watch Les Elephants stomp Ecuador, I will delete my account for good. I'm not certain which is that must be Ivory Coast, right? With their remember their scarf from a couple World Cups ago, the 1,000% elephants. Okay. Well, anyway, you should, I guess, delete your account too. We've all helped create this monster, and we can all do our small part to slay the dragon. I don't know if it does anything or not, but there are hopeful signs led by thousands who came out this weekend in Belfast and elsewhere in the UK to protest Musk-fueled hate. If we don't act quickly and non-violently, not like beating up that guy, to undo the massive policy failure of the world's first trillionaire, the raging fires of Belfast are going to look like child's play. I always want to read Will Bunch, always want to hear a good shot taken at Elon Musk and things put in realistic terms about what he's actually done here, but also needed to catch up on the Belfast story and acknowledge it, even as we won't be following it all that closely since it's just not happening here in the United States. Not that it can't or won't, just at the moment isn't, and thank God it isn't, but it's a useful warning to note that it is happening in a place which has always been kind of a tinderbox, and it's not like we're not a little bit of a tinderbox ourselves, so watch out. It's a good warning. All right. Let's see. Other things to add to the collections. Oh, you know what? More Kennedy Center stories. There's a weird angle on it that we haven't discussed yet. And by the way, yes, the tarp is still staying up. And who did I read today? I think it was Heather Cox Richardson. And let's see if I can find her story for the day. And we don't need to necessarily read the whole thing, but will this bring us to today's entry or yesterday's entry? Let's see. I think we can certainly get there. It was always, as always, a good post, but was she the one that said, oh yeah, okay. So, basically what's the theme of today's one is President Donald J. Trump's remaking of Washington, D.C. to reflect his personalized approach to power rather than the American people and their government has become a little too on the nose in the past week. And there's all sorts of examples, but the one I was interested in was the alleged compliance of the board of the Kennedy Center with a court order requiring it to remove Trump's name from the center illustrates yet another of Trump's hallmarks cheating the system. Trump packed the board with loyalists who made him chair and then changed the name of the building, despite specific language from Congress that, quote, no additional memorials or plaques in the nature of memorials shall be designated or installed in the public areas of the Kennedy Center. The board missed the deadline by 12 hours. Then Charles M. Floca, F-L-O-C-A, whom Trump installed at the head of the Kennedy Center, certified to the court that, quote, the center and its board have complied with the court's order. They didn't. They missed the deadline, but there's more of it. In a statement, Kennedy Center spokesperson Roma Daravi said that the center was, quote, fully compliant with the court's directive and that the board was evaluating, quote, legal options. Their conclusion seems to have been that the court ordered them only to take down Trump's name. It did not order them to show that his name was down or keep Kennedy's name visible. Currently, the Kennedy Center portico facade is covered with a giant tarp through which workers have created passageways to make the center's doors accessible while keeping the portico covered. Trump has made his career on the idea that there's always a way to cheat the system if you operate in bad faith, and he has carried that idea into government. Famously, in 2016, when Democratic candidate Hillary Clinton said Trump was hiding his tax returns because he had paid no federal income taxes in years, Trump answered, "That makes me smart." So there we go. There's lots more to it. They go on into various other examples of it. But yeah, they're keeping the tarp up so that you can't see that his name is gone. We complied with the court order. We took the name down. We're not showing anybody that we complied with the court order. And we're also probably violating the rules about everything else by not even displaying Kennedy's name. But if I can't have it, nobody can. And nobody said anything in the court order, but and probably true. The court order probably did not say you need to take it down and then show everybody that you took it down. Like, that's nonsensical, but apparently necessary with this guy. I think that's very illustrative and worth pointing out. Okay, but that wasn't the story I wanted to tell you about. There are a couple that are out there. Let me start with this one from the New York Times from a couple of days ago. Opening it up, it takes a little while. Things are slow on the computer side these days. Opera company sues to collect $17 million from the Kennedy Center. What's happening here? The Washington National Opera, which left the center amid the Trump administration's takeover, says its efforts to retrieve its endowment and other assets have been blocked. Yeah, I guess apparently the board of the Kennedy Center stole the Washington National Opera's endowment fund in all of this. However, that's an outrage, obviously. They may or may not get it back, but it was interesting to read through this story and it's behind the scenes, and if you read between the lines, there's I think this story, this saga, this drama to be uncovered. I could make a mini-series of it for Netflix. Netflix, call me. I'll make it for you in exchange for just making Netflix free for me. That's all. I know. Why not? I should get a development deal. Everybody else does. But there's a story here about, I'm guessing, I'm generalizing, I'm speculating. It may be totally unfair, but my guess is that Washington National Opera, the opera scene in general in major, especially East Coast elitist cities, is I think, kind of packed to the rafters with dilettantes and the scions of rich families, which, fine, that's who goes to the opera, whatever. It's a little unseemly if you really dig down into it, but it's just the same scene as any socialite circles and charitable funds and whatnot, and that happen in the New York scene. I mean, really Trump's scene. I don't think any of the people in that circle really like him, but he's rich enough that he gets asked to go to those things, even though everybody should be smart by now. He's not going to donate money to you. What are you, crazy? He might steal somebody else's money and give it to you and say, put it in my name. But that's it. But it's always a slightly, lightly corrupt sort of circle anyway. Just rich people passing around checks to one another. I have a charitable foundation. You have a charitable foundation. Our friends all have charitable foundations. Our occupation will be holding charity functions, parties for us to go to, at which each of us give, it's your turn. You hold the party, and then us, this circle of the 16 of us, will give checks from our charitable foundations to your charitable foundation. Then it will be my turn to hold the party, and the 16 of you will give checks to my, and they just pass the same money around over and over again. And it's just kind of, what can you do? It's not a great sustainable business model or anything, but it's not a business. They're non-profit charitable foundations, and it doesn't really matter so long as money continues to flow, that it be earned in any particular way. So there's, people with bottomless funds, and they just give each other checks over and over again. And I think it works as long as it works. But here we have an example of it falling apart because some maladjusted evildoer has injected himself into it and just says, well, I'm going to steal all 16 of your checks. And then when it's time for you to invite me to your thing and I'm supposed to give you a check, I'm going to say, sorry, I'm fresh out. I stole all the money. So what's going on here? Washington National Opera left the Kennedy Center when Trump took over. And guess what? It's like a bad divorce. They can't get their endowment. Why? Because at some point, I guess long story short, at some point in the past when things were going swimmingly and everybody was handing checks around to one another, somebody said, you know what? Accounting for this Washington National Opera thing, as much as I love opera, accounting is not really my thing. What if we just turned over control to the Kennedy Center? We'll become an arm of the Kennedy Center, and they'll do all the back-end office stuff like counting money and putting it in banks and reporting to people about how much money we have. I hate doing that stuff. And I'm rich and I want to go play golf or go jet skiing in the Caribbean, whatever it is. I got a mega yacht to go play on. I don't want to do any accounting. And then when things went sour, I guess, look, nobody expected Trump's to just take over the Kennedy Center and change the whole thing and then start stealing the money left and right. But when they did and people found out about it and said, let's leave, like a bad divorce, it turns out, we signed our assets over to the abuser, and now we can't leave and have our money. Shoot, what's going to happen here? All right, Julia Jacobs did the reporting on June 12th. Here's the initial New York Times story of it. The Washington National Opera, which recently severed its longstanding relationship with the John F. Kennedy Center for the Performing Arts, has filed a lawsuit that demands more than $17 million from the center that the opera company estimates is owed. Now, when you get up into the millions of dollars of figures, I guess there's some room for shading and whatever. There's rounding errors, etc. But I mean, that's what you estimate you're owed? Like, who has the financial records? $17 million is something that's trackable. You guys are rich people. You're supposed to understand money. You're business geniuses. Nobody knows how much you're owed. But it does kind of get worse from there. But it's not the major part of the story. This is all undercurrent in the story. The suit filed Thursday says that since the opera company struck out on its own this year, Kennedy Center officials have refused to release the money, which the court papers say includes endowment funds, other donations, and income that was collected for the company's benefit. Quote, WNO reluctantly files this case to preserve its future and to protect its donors and artists, lawyers for the opera said in court papers, which identify the funds as donor gifts received over years that are, quote, critical to its operations. I don't doubt any of that. In a statement responding to the lawsuit, Roma Daravi, remember her, spokeswoman for the center, said that the relationship with the opera company, quote, financially burdened the center for more than a decade. And I could see that being the case, but nobody cared so long as, rich people got their operas. This is one of the things we do. We financially burden the center with the administrative costs of handling the WNO's money and donations and endowment. That statement noted that taking into account the company's endowment, an external accounting firm had calculated that the company had, quote, accumulated a $72 million deficit to the center between 2011 and 2026, the years it was an affiliate of the institution. And that may very well be a lie by the Kennedy Center board trying to show that they don't have to give back the endowment they stole and trying to justify it that way. Or it could very well be true. And nobody really cared that the whole thing was running a deficit because rich people love opera. There's a bunch of rich people who, even if they don't love opera, they want to be seen as loving opera. They want their names on plaques. And whatever money we need to continue to do whatever the hell it is we do, we'll just collect from rich people. It's easy. You have a fundraiser, you make it a black tie thing, everybody comes and gets their pictures in the paper. Whatever money we need, they give us. Why do accounting if you can just say, give me a bunch of money, rich people, and they show up with it? So maybe they have accumulated a $72 million deficit over the years. Maybe they haven't, and it's just an excuse to steal the $17 million that was in the bank. The center has acted transparently and in the best interest of the public throughout the process, Ms. Daravi said. This lawsuit is meritless, and we plan to pursue a countersuit to defend the institution. Paid for by the money we stole from you. The opera left the center in January, nearly a year after President Trump's takeover of the Kennedy Center led to an exodus of audiences, artists, and donors. Officials at the center said then that they had decided to part ways with the opera, which had played there since 1971, quote, due to a financially challenging relationship. The legal dispute comes as the Kennedy Center remains mired in uncertainty. In response to a separate lawsuit, a federal judge ordered the president's name removed from the center and temporarily blocked his plan to close the institution for 2 years of renovations. Lawyers for the center and Mr. Trump, who is chairman of the board, appealed the decision on Thursday. That didn't work out. The name had to come off, etc., etc. The opera's lawsuit, filed in the United States Court of Federal Claims, details the tensions that arose before the company's departure. It lists the federal government as the defendant because the center was established by Congress. The lawsuit says that the day before the separation announcement, Donna Arduin, the Kennedy Center's chief financial officer, told leaders of the opera company that money in a fund containing bequests and other contributions to the opera had been used as collateral for a line of credit. Well, that seems awfully dumb, but you did turn over control of it to them, and then there was a hostile takeover of the guys you gave control to. The suit says Ms. Arduin asserted that those funds belonged to the center, but the opera company contends they were expressly reserved for its benefit. The suit did not specify how much money was said to have been used as collateral. And then they estimate the $17 million. Here's where I start to say, why is it all so cloudy? Why is there no accounting of funds that came in for the Washington National Opera, even if somebody else is holding them for you? How do you know you're going to get all the money you're entitled to? You always keep your own financial records, even when you should probably never have your friends handle that stuff because it creates all sorts of tensions. But if you keep your records, just keep it for your own sake so that you know what's going on, even if you never have a dispute with anybody. Anyway, for about 15 years, the opera company was an affiliate of the Kennedy Center, meaning that the center oversaw its operations and funding, and the company performed in its 2,364-seat opera house. But its close relationship faltered after Mr. Trump installed his allies and its leaders. Richard Grinnell, Trump's hand-picked president of the center, accused previous leadership of financial mismanagement and sought to require that programming be revenue neutral, meaning shows would need to take in as much money in ticket sales and sponsorships up front as they cost to mount, which by itself doesn't sound all that unusual, right? That expectation ran up against the realities of American opera companies, which typically operate with deficits that are backfilled by donations. And cushy, easy, right? They always come up with it. The lawsuit says that by the fall of last year, leaders at the Washington National Opera had, quote, lost all visibility, unquote, into its financial accounts, which were managed by the center. But by the way, there is a treasurer of the Washington National Opera. It's just... he, too, is just a rich guy who does something else and proclaims himself to be an opera lover and volunteered, I'm sure, for this position. I don't know if it's paid or what, but, like, why are you estimating what your endowment is? Why isn't there a book with a number in it somewhere? Anyway, for months, WNO repeatedly tried to address these issues with the Kennedy Center, including through written requests for meetings, and meetings with the Kennedy Center leadership. The suit says those efforts were met with indifference. The request for more than $17 million relies on the opera company's own estimate of its finances. The suit does not make clear how much of the figure is made up of endowment funds. Right? So it makes it, apparently the suit doesn't make clear how much it's really requesting, and it doesn't make clear how much of what it's requesting is actually endowment. Because, I don't know, I was playing golf the whole time. I'm not sure how much endowment we had. After Mr. Grinnell suggested an amicable separation between the two organizations, the suit noted, the opera's leaders, who were increasingly concerned about the trajectory of ticket sales and donations, agreed. When the decision was announced, public statements on both sides were cordial, but behind the scenes, conflict was building. By the way, so part of the story I'm not going to get to today is I went looking at what was the story then, and it's amazing. The board of the WNO is sniping at each other and denying that they're going to leave and insisting, no, we're going to be there forever. That's our future. But not just that, saying that other officials who were saying, actually, we're going to leave, were lying when, like a week later, it was clear that it was the truth the whole time. It's really bizarre. The suit says that Kennedy Center officials engaged a third party, not a 30th party, accounting firm to calculate what the opera company might be owed, but that there has been no stated commitment to actually transfer the money. Ms. Daravi, the spokeswoman for the center, said the opera company had, quote, failed to engage in good faith discussions amid the financial dispute, despite, quote, multiple proposals. Whatever that might mean. In recent months, the opera company has been preparing for a new season at venues in and around Washington, relying on funding reserves and emergency fundraising. So once again, they just need money and people just say, all right, here. The season starting in the fall includes a new production of Puccini's Madama Butterfly, staged at DAR Constitution Hall, and John Adams' Nixon in China, not the original John Adams, of course, starring Renee Fleming and Thomas Hampson, which sounds fantastic and all, but, the story is about the lawsuit. As I said, there's another story or two that I socked away there that really, I don't know. This is just by way of example, the story I was telling you about people accusing one another. I don't know what publication this is, slippedisc.com. Apparently, it claims, the number one classical music site. This is a piece from November 11th, 2025 by Norman Lebrecht, I don't know, Lebrecht. Kennedy Center denies that the opera is planning to leave. We have received this official statement from Washington, D.C., quote, the WNO has no plans to move out of the Kennedy Center, and we are proud to be part of America's cultural center entering our 70th season, said Andy Farrow, president of the WNO Board of Trustees. But what about Francesca Zambello's statement? She's the artistic director, that the company is thinking of leaving. No comment on the record. Privately, center officials are saying the press report is not true and the views of Francesca Zambello did not reflect the views of WNO and the Kennedy Center leadership. In other words, listen to this way he puts it. In other words, she was fantasizing, or, as one official put it more bluntly, lying. They're actually, we're going to be growling about lying by the artistic director of the Washington National Opera.
You have been listening
Amazing.
to Kagro in the morning with David Waldman.
And I don't know how much longer after that it was clear that, yes, it is in fact true. They are leaving. And now they're having to sue to get back their endowment. And all of the weirdo dilettantes who kind of gave half of their attention to what they were supposed to be doing on behalf of the opera now realize, we never did a day's work in our life. Can't believe it. All right, we'll be back tomorrow with more. Stay tuned for Justice next.